Hi, and welcome back to 3 Lessons from Breakthrough Leaders with me, Zana Ryabchuk, the CEO at Breakthrough Global, and I'm here again with Dr. Bart Sale.
Hello, everyone.
And this podcast is all about giving you insider tips and know-how from the world's foremost leaders and creative talents, distilling their knowledge and experience into 3 lessons which we guarantee will help you and your companies to unleash your potential. Today, we're joined by Edgar Huber. Currently, Edgar is the CEO and part owner of Nest New York, a private equity-owned global fragrance lifestyle company. And he's a global leader with a track record of success in transforming and rebuilding fast-paced Fortune 500 companies, including Coty, Juicy Couture, and L'Oreal.
Lesson 1. From command and control to culture champion. Well, welcome, Edgar, and it's a real pleasure and a privilege to have you on our podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bart. Actually, I was introduced to Bart and to Breakthrough and to all of you back in 2016 when Coty decided to buy the beauty business of P&G. And when I was approached by the chairman of the board to become the CEO of this new luxury unit, I realized that my biggest challenge was not business. My biggest challenge was not innovation. My biggest challenge was not winning market shares. My biggest challenge was creating a winning culture. And the main reason was that there could not have been 2 more opposite cultures between Coty and P&G, because one was extremely short-term result-focused and the other one was much more long-term strategic and process-focused. And then, of course, there was, to make it even more complicated, there was this third element, which were people like I, who came from the outside. Neither Coty nor P&G. I came from L'Oreal, and there were a lot of ex-L'Oreal people there too. So I had 3 complete different cultures on my team. And so I called an old friend of mine, Pierre Lobies, and we just chatted a little bit. And he said, so what do you see is the biggest challenge? And I said, well, that's the challenge. And then he said, I have a solution for you. And he introduced me to Bart. And this is how we started. And then we had several very, very successful sessions with the smaller team. And then with the much bigger team, lovely offsites, really, which were extremely helpful to the top 70 of the company. Some of them even found out how they could order room service in order to get a more solid dinner than the one you had organized. The overall experience was absolutely game-changing for me. It was game-changing for the company. It was game-changing for a lot of people. So I really don't think that the Coty Luxury Division would have been so successful without you. We started the journey of nearly 5 years consecutive quarter-by-quarter growth of our top line in the high single digits, and every quarter we increased our profit in the high double digits. And we're very, very consistent within the Coty universe in terms of business deliverables. Created this really specific culture in Paris, had a really strong rhythm in terms of town halls, and shared with the 16 or 1,700 people, full-time employees of the division. And then I stopped. But the most interesting comment someone made to me was when we had a big Coty conference in Barcelona. And before we went to this worldwide global conference in Barcelona, we spent a couple of days together outside of Paris. It was the first session we had. And someone who was in the room in Barcelona afterwards came to me and looked at my team and me and said, why do you love each other so much? So that was one of the outcomes of our first offsite we had many, many years ago.
That's great. That's great. Can you remember some of the things, though, that transformed in terms of the culture? So you went in with these 3 different cultures, and there was a culture within Coty anyway, which you created your own culture within luxury, I remember. So what was some of the elements of that some of our listeners would be interested in?
I think that first of all, the most important thing is that we all started to know each other really well, because we were all kind of put together and we're supposed to have a team and we're a team working together, but we didn't really know each other. And I think really the icebreaker was that the program you have developed allows people really to know each other, discover each other in a way that is without any barriers and without any protections, but at the same time in a very respectful way. And so I think we started knowing each other with each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses, which helped us really to form a very well-functioning team with very complementary skill sets. And we had no fear in order to use these skill sets to help each other. It's the line of one, which is the approach to it. And so that was really for me the first most important thing that changed for me and my leadership team, that we started being a successful team. The second thing is that we all started also to align on a same wordage. So we used the same words, we used the same value system. We had decided together what was important for us and what was not important. So I think that was the second very, very, very important learning. And then the third one is that, over the years, I'm now fully convinced that actually it's the second and the third layer in each company that really makes the difference in order to deliver targets. And when we have extended then afterwards the town halls we had, the offsites we had to the top 70 people, I really saw a very, very significant difference. All of them were a little bit reluctant at the beginning. All of them I said, another 3 days here. I could do something else. And then after these 3 days, they were just mesmerized, energized, completely behind the strategy, completely behind the values we had decided together. And so I think that this actioning, not only on the top level, but also level 2 and level 3, really makes a very, very significant difference if you want to change culture and if you want to deliver targets in a sustainable way.
So today, we all know that command and control is not the best way to lead people or lead an organization. Yet in our experience, many people still fall into that trap, often without knowing. So we end up managing rather than leading. We manage results, we manage resources, and we attempt to manage people. But people really can't be managed. What people need, they need to be led. Because leadership is that. It's leading people.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, Edgar has really shared his vulnerability there and been generous with exploring how his awareness was raised over a period of time to bring him from one level of performance to a much higher level of performance. And he's now a huge fan and utilizer of coaching and programs like Breakthrough to make sure that he's accessing his most powerful self, which isn't the command and control version of him, actually. It's the unleashed, more people-focused, culture-focused champion that he has become and grown into. And it was lovely to hear him describe that story and see where he has come from.
So ask yourself, how aware are you of your style of leadership? Is it swaying more to management? Or is it swaying more to leading people, leading cultures? And as a leader, are you also acting as a coach for yourself and for your people? Lesson 2, culture makes or breaks M&A.
You mentioned before, when we come back to those 3 cultures, Edgar, that had come into Coty, and I remember it very clearly how distinctive they were. You had come in from the L'Oreal culture, and you said, some of your colleagues were in that. Describe how that layered in then in terms of your experience from L'Oreal and what that brought to your role within Coty.
I mean, it was for me personally also a very big learning experience because I come from this time at L'Oreal, and so we were just really trained, first of all, to be extremely result focused. Shareholder value was the only thing that was really relevant. The word culture or leadership didn't even exist. It was kind of, what's that? It was not in any of the documents. When I started, there wasn't even a document for the performance reviews at the end of the year. It was just a conversation, but there was no guide. There was no form to fill out. There was not a document which you would have signed at the end of the process like you do today. And so I came for this culture where you just really had to deliver your top line, really had to deliver your profit. Nothing else was relevant. And when you needed new talent, you just called HR and then they sent you 2 or 3 and you were choosing one and that's it. So you didn't even go outside to recruit. And if people were happy on the team or not was absolutely irrelevant. Nobody cared about that. The importance of the culture, the importance of good leadership, the importance of really working successfully together as a team is something which I discovered relatively late in my career. And I really saw the huge difference and very openly sometimes regret that I didn't focus on this much earlier in my career because things would have gone differently. But it's something which did not exist at the time. And so from a cultural point of view, it was new to me, but it was also new to the team. And once again, I think that's the main reason why we became so successful afterwards, because of this cultural step forward. Not, yes, innovation was good, and yes, go-to-market execution was great, and yes, we had the right talent, and yes, we had the right channel strategies. So all these things were, of course, helpful, but in order to make it successful and bring it together was clearly the culture work we did.
So I started Breakthrough about just over 30 years ago, and that was as a result of my experience in Unilever, particularly towards the end of my time in Unilever, where you're right, the people didn't mention culture. It wasn't in any documents, it wasn't in any presentation. People would talk about organization and organization structure, and generally the organization was seen as a machine rather than something organic. And you're right, the command and control was basically the way people had learned to manage, and that's what they did. They tried to manage people, which we now know you can't manage people. You can lead people, and you can manage resources. And at that time, I went off on a sabbatical. I got myself a sabbatical, and that's where I got the insight that I called it the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling on our ability to grow and innovate is our culture.
Absolutely. Culture is continuous. Culture is not something which you just turn off at the end of the year and then you start again on January 1st or January 10th. It's something that continues permanently. Therefore, it's so important to work on the culture, the talent, the development of the people, because that's something that will never stop. That's something which is permanent. And then I think something which is also brilliant for your specific case is that there are a couple of very simple tools that you teach, which afterwards you can apply. I see the blue train behind you. The concept of the red and the blue train is something which is easy to understand, easy to explain also afterwards and to apply it. The line of one is something which seems obvious, but it's not lived every day. And you know very well that there's a lot of backstabbing and fighting going on in companies. So all these simple principles, which you can afterwards apply and re-explain to a certain way, I think is also one of the real successful and unique things which you have in your program.
Thanks for your generosity with all of your wonderful feedback today, Edgar. It's really lovely to hear, and it is why we do the work, isn't it?
And we loved working with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun few years. So we see this often in the work that we do at Breakthrough, working with organisations who've just been through some sort of merger and acquisition. And there's so much effort and time and sometimes a bit of blood, sweat and tears spent on all of the integration processes, right? All of the documentation, people putting in 18-hour days, sometimes for months and months, sometimes even years, on a very, very, very big M&A. And what often gets forgotten, and we see it time and again, is the culture. And so where we have worked many times is to come in at the end of that experience and actually to rebuild that culture. And this isn't about saying one culture's right and one culture's wrong, one strong culture swallowing the weaker culture. For us, there's no right or wrong or good or bad. What we're looking at is where are the real assets in any combination of those cultures, and how can we get the best out of those assets, and then layer over that a common language, common way of working, an incredible kind of breakthrough mindset that then everybody has got as a foundation, as a platform from which they can then lean into their different roles, their different divisions or business units or markets with unity and not uniformity. And we found that this works extremely, extremely well. So M&As don't fail because the financials don't work or the structure doesn't work, because they can always transform those things. In our experience, they fail because they have forgotten about the culture and it's an afterthought when actually it should be absolutely front and center with any other strategic planning. If you get the culture wrong, then nothing else will follow. When you get the culture right, everything else becomes so much easier.
Lesson 3. Leading begins and ends with culture.
So you mentioned being on boards and how your career, your leadership has evolved since the times that we were working together. What other key messages would you have for CEOs who are maybe going to embark on some sort of transformation in the near future?
Well, to absolutely not underestimate the importance of working with your team, working on the company culture, and also doing it regularly. Because what I have seen over the years is that there's always a great hype, and there's also everything is great, and then the motivation and the ways of work are trickling down. I still work with coaches, and I still work on high performance team coaching with my teams, and so usually I try to have one big session per year, but then every 6 months I have shorter sessions to reactivate, to remind people, to bring them together again, and just get back to work on these important values. So my message is, first of all, it's a number one priority for every leader to do this in order to be successful. Secondly, don't think because you have done it once, it's done. It's not at all done. It means that you have to re-inject every 6 months. It's what I do. I mean, maybe some want to do it every year, but don't do it only once and then walk away and you think it's done. It's not at all. So that's the most important thing. And then third, also, I start also involving now boards, that at least some board members are participating to some of these sessions and understand actually what's in the company going on. There's full transparency, and you won't believe how it changes the way of the leadership working with the board when there's complete full transparency and when they actually spend also quality time with the leadership and with the people in the team, because there's a personal relationship that develops. It changes completely the way also to working with the board. And it's there's a lot of resistance in the private equity world, because the private equity guys usually they are only interested in their return on invest. They want to flip businesses in 5 years at the latest. So why would you invest in long-term strategic culture building work? It's just a waste of time and a waste of money in their perception. And then when you bring them into this, they first of all realize that they are missing it in their companies, because they still operate like in the 90s, when you see how they work. Then number two, they really understand that actually the return on investment is much higher for them because of the improved performance by doing this. So I think it goes in both ways, but there's still a lot of work to do, because there's still many, many, many layers of the economy and the world of companies that do not realize and do not really appreciate the importance of culture.
So, Edgar, in your career and in your life journey, what are some of the things that stand out for you? It might be being mentored, it might be an experience, it could be a success, could be a failure, that really shifted you and helped you to be where you are now.
I think you learn always so much more from failure than what you do from success. And I had an extremely successful career at L'Oréal for 16 years. I was on a fast track and got promoted every 3 years. And I wasn't even 40 when I was already the CEO of the L'Oréal luxury division here in North America, which is the second biggest beauty company in the country. And that was all good. But then for personal reasons and also choices where I wanted to live, I left L'Oréal. And I joined at the time a company called Lise Claiborne, which was in the apparel industry, because I wanted to change industry. And after doing this for 3 years, I got fired, or I was asked to leave the company. It was in a more gentle way than that, but still I failed. Now I was still in my early 40s. I lived in Manhattan. We just had our first child, and I lost my job. So it was a really life-changing experience for me. And I really learned that after 3 years finishing on a failure, you learn so much more about leadership. You learn so much more about you should have done differently. It was never about the a technical part of the job. It was only about the soft skills. And in these 3 years, I think I have learned so much more in terms of soft skills, in terms of culture, in terms of the importance of leadership than what I have not learned in 16, 17 years at L'Oréal, where my career was extremely successful.
Very good. Very good. And thanks for sharing. People often don't share their failures, but they are. They're the biggest learning. The first business I created after Unilever, I bought a film studios, and we went bankrupt in 9 months. and I'd borrowed money to buy it. So what I realized is that, financial failure doesn't end at zero. And just coming out of a place like Unilever, I'd worked in other companies as well, but one of the big things I had to confront was, just a minute, I have to make money now with my own hands. I don't get a check every month. And that was a wake-up call as well. It's probably why I went bankrupt, but yeah.
One of the things I like most of all with this conversation with Edgar is his realization that after a long and very successful career, he now sees that the priority needs to be people and culture. And if he'd have known that at the beginning, he feels he'd have had a very different experience. May have been just as successful, but the experience would have been different and one that he would have preferred.
And I loved what Edgar was saying about the power of bringing people together and how he has interventions with his team, multiple times a year. And that he really recommends this for other CEOs, because so often it is seen as kind of a tick box. It's like, I've done my culture bit for the year and now I can get onto the, air quote, real work. And actually, as a leader, your main work is working on the culture. It's your greatest advantage. So we would recommend that you're really keeping that connectedness. The magic of bringing people together is in that shared experience, whether you're, working with a company like Breakthrough or not, even just getting everybody in one room, incredible things can start to happen from that connectivity. So as a CEO, ask yourself, do you have something like that scheduled this year? When did you last check in with your team in this way? Because it's never done, as Edgar says. The work is continuous. Your team's evolving, they're shifting, they're changing all the time. And so you need to make sure that you're continuously checking in with them and keeping culture front and centre. Well, Edgar, I think it's time to come on to your hot seat questions. So these are the hot seat questions. I will ask them in rapid order, and we'd love to hear your answers. Are you ready?
I'm not sure what it is, but but I guess I have to be ready. Yeah.
We'll see. What's the most exciting thing you've ever done?
Winning a ski championship in Austria.
Amazing. What inspires you in life?
Happiness and family.
And what brings you energy and motivation in your everyday life?
I just cannot do other than being motivated and always want to go further. Sitting back or retiring is not an option for me. It just doesn't, it's not part of my DNA. So I'm not sure that's the right answer for you, but that's a little bit how I function.
It is. It reminds me of somebody else today.
That's the same for
me. Exactly. I love it. Thank you so much for answering our hot seat questions.
It's just been great fun and a real pleasure to speak to you in this format. It's good as well to hear some of the things that I didn't know about you. Yet, show me, yes, that is you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for thinking of me.
Thanks again for joining us. Remember to hit the subscribe button and join us again for our next set of lessons. And if you've got any questions or comments, email us at bartsale@breakthroughglobal.com or connect with us directly. We'd love you to do that on LinkedIn at Breakthrough Global.
And we'd love to hear your own leadership stories. We'd also love for you to share this episode on your own social media and review and rate this podcast on your player of choice.
So as always, thank you to our production team, Yulia Sholtezova and Victoria Okrafar at Breakthrough Global, and of course Robin Leeburn at Fairley Media. And thank you for listening.